Available now on 4K Blu-ray from Synapse Films is a 4K Blu-ray edition of Dario Argento's 1985 bonkers horror fantasy Phenomena. I can't help it. As long as I've known this movie under this title, my brain just goes, being a kid who grew up with, Sesame Street and The Muppet Show, Phenomena. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the new Synapse Films 4K Blu-ray release of Dario Argento's Phenomena, starring Jennifer Connelly, her second feature film role, well before she was famous, but not long before she was famous. Which is to say, I guess, not long before she was famous. She had been in Once Upon a Time in America in a relatively small role. This was her first starring role in this Italian horror film that did get stateside release in a truncated form called Creepers, which actually I found out opened on my birthday in 1985, which is kind of cool. And then she went on to do Labyrinth, I think, basically right after this. So this was sort of I don't know if it was the springboard for her fame, but it was a stepping stone to her fame. Also features Donald Pleasence, Daria Nicolodi, and Dario Argento's daughter Fiore in a very, very brief and tragic role at the beginning of the film. Oh, and it has a chimp in it. I believe, like I heard once on the original DVD commentary for American Pie, the filmmakers of that film believed everything's better with a monkey. I firmly believe that. Everything is better with a monkey or a chimp. Gorilla, if pressed, orangutan, if pressed. But this has that going for it, too. So if you know Phenomena, I'm not going to do it every time. If you know Phenomena and Argento's work, just bear with me for a minute or so. This is for anybody who might not know what the heck this thing is. Oh, and I can show you too. So this is the release. I had it slightly pulled out, but this is, oh, look, you can tell what kind of light I'm using. This is the release, but from Synapse. Nice little slipcase there. Reveals a disc that looks identical. And you open it up, you get a real cool Synapse little booklet that lists all their releases. And then you have, if I make this a little bit more beautiful for the camera, you've got the two discs there. Disc 1 is the film in 4K. The Italian version of the film, the longest cut of this film. We'll get into that. And disc 2 is the international and American versions of the film. So this movie, basically, you've got Jennifer, who is our lead actress, our main character, and she is sent off to a boarding school in the Alps by her father, who is a famous movie star, and she has this strange psychic ability to talk to bugs, as you do. And there is a series of murders that have been going on that she basically teams up with Donald Pleasence, who's an entomologist who has bugs that can sniff out cadavers, and she tries to help. Because Donald Pleasence is wheelchair bound, he's trying to help the police, but the police, they can only do so much. You need the son of a movie star who can talk to bugs as the person to crack your cases. So that's basically the movie. It's weird, it's goofy, it's got a great soundtrack. You've got Claudia Simonetti, you've got Simon Boswell, you've got Iron Maiden, you've got Bill Wyman does a really great piece at the beginning of the film, and it was really sold in this country too based on its soundtrack. I actually have a copy of the soundtrack. As I said, it was released here as Creepers in a very truncated form, and I was able in the good old days in Boston in the early to mid 90s, before these movies got the attention they have now amongst horror fans, when they were really much more of a small cult thing, I was able to find the original movie poster for Creepers and the original sealed soundtrack album for Creepers, which is pretty cool. Anyway, so that's the story of the film. It's very strange. It's not one of my favorite Argentos, and I'm a big Dario Argento fan ever since Suspiria hit video on Magnum Home Entertainment VHS, and I saw an ad in a trade paper, and I said, this thing looks great, and I watched it, and I was a sucker ever since then. So Phenomena is weird because it's really illogical, it's really fantastical, it's a little silly at times. Argento kind of cribs from himself in places where you've got, just like Suspiria, you've got the girls' school, you've got a lot of scenes, and the extras in this really point that stuff out too. You have a lot of scenes where it's like sort of Argento doing Argento's greatest hits at that point, but it's got some really great moments, it's got some great music, and some wonderful, gruesome, and shocking bits. So if you're a fan of the kind of movies that I am, Phenomena is a lot of fun. It's just a little goofy. So that's all out of the way. Anybody who knows what this movie is really wants to know about this edition of the film. This edition, and I got a little inside skitty on this too. So you pop in the disc, and as somebody who reviews a lot of Arrow Home Video product and who's a big fan of Arrow Home Video, it's a Synapse disc, Synapse, but when you throw it in, It has the Arrow Video menus, same font, even the extras. It'll say this was done by Arrow Video. Apparently, what the deal is this was a partner deal between Synapse and Arrow. Synapse did the restoration and gets the U.S. rights to this. Arrow has UK rights. So if you buy this disc in the UK, or if you buy a UK edition of this, if it's a 4K, it's going to be the exact same thing. If it's not a 4K, it's going to be the same thing minus that extra clarity. So first of all, the transfer. It looks, I'm going to say it, sorry. It looks phenomenal. It looks phenomenal. This looks so good. This is a movie I've seen a lot. I've seen this on film in theaters a few times. I've seen this, I owned the Laserdisc, I owned the DVD, I owned the Blu-ray. It's a movie I've seen a lot. It's never looked this good. Wow. This is really good. And this is 4K, so I've got a 4K player. I've got a 4K TV that's rather sizable. Circumstances, what they are currently where I'm living, I sat rather close to the TV, and razor sharp detail. Beautiful, excellent skin tones. It doesn't look like an old movie. You can read signage. I'm a sucker for signage, you know. You can read, you can see the stuff that's on Donald Pleasence's desk. You can really kind of soak up all the details that were never quite clear enough to see before. So disc 1 is the Italian version of the film, the longest cut there is, and there was never an English dub created for this full-length version, so you have choices on what your audio will be. You can listen to it in Italian in full as it was seen in theaters in Italy originally with the Italian language track and subtitles, English subtitles, or there is this newly done English-Italian hybrid 5.1 mix where basically anything that was never dubbed into English just drops to Italian language and you see subtitles. The full-length release of Deep Red, Argento's Profondo Rosso, let's say, was done that way. The original version was much, much longer than what English language countries get, and if you watch the version predominantly in English, just once in a while, suddenly they're speaking in Italian and subtitles come up. If you're a fan, it's not that big a deal. If you really hate subtitles, it might be jarring to people, but that's an option you have here. You also have Italian 5.1 mix and Italian 2.0, original mix in Italian. It's, as I said, the transfer on this is unbelievable. You have, for extras, you have a commentary with Troy Howarth and was it just, yes, sorry, looking at my notes. You have a commentary with Troy Howarth that's great. He's a scholar on Italian films and Argento, and he's very honest about his assessment of the film. He doesn't just say this film is the greatest ever. He points out that he doesn't even particularly like the film that much, and he points out its weaknesses and things like that, which is refreshing. He doesn't trash the movie all the way through, but he just points out where, he feels like Argento dropped the ball, and he's actually very, very honest in his assessment of Argento as a whole, which is one I unfortunately share in that I'm a huge fan of the guy. I love the guy. I'll watch anything new that he does, but I've lost any faith that he'll really do anything good again. Having said that, his most recent film, Dark Glasses, which I think maybe it's on disc in foreign countries. I don't know if it's come out on disc in this country. It's available on Shudder. I was able to see that at its its U.S. premiere, I guess, in New York City at an Argento festival last year, and I thought it was quite good. And again, is it as good as his original stuff in the old days? Probably not, but it's the best thing he's done in quite a while. So it's interesting to hear somebody else who's honest about this guy and doesn't really think he has that much left in the tank as far as good movies in the future, but his great movies are so great, you're never going to stop loving and respecting that. You just kind of wish that if he was still making movies, he might come close again, but as with any artist, that's really not very likely. You get a 2017 feature-length documentary, longer than the film, or as long as the film, called Of Flies and Maggots. That's very, very appetizing, I know. A thorough making-of documentary that features Argento and Luigi Cozzi and a bunch of his technical collaborators, behind-the-scenes people. You don't get the actors from the film so much. You get Fiore Argento, and you get the guy who played the son, shall we say, in the film, not to give anything away. And it's really interesting. And again, it's a very honest assessment of what did and didn't work about the film. Fascinating, thoroughly entertaining, and interesting. And with some behind-the-scenes footage that strangely was of a very low quality. I was really surprised because I remember I own a VHS tape called Dario Argento's World of Horror that was done by, I believe it was Michele Soave, who shot this feature-length behind-the-scenes thing that was about Argento's career overall, but really heavily focused on the making of Phenomena and Demons. A lot of the footage from this is taken from YouTube, and it has like weird motion artifacts, and it looks really low grade. And I'm just thinking, nobody had the tape? Nobody had the tape that I had? Anyway, that's something that just bugs me about documentaries in general now, when footage is just people don't go any farther than YouTube to get stuff and whatever YouTube quality is, when I feel like maybe if you dug a little deeper, there probably is the original source material somewhere. Maybe I'm just hopeful and nobody kept anything and that's all we got now. You also get the Italian trailer that runs 2 minutes. You get the international trailer that runs 2 minutes, which is pretty much the same as the Italian trailer, but it's dubbed in English. And you get the Japanese press book, which is 15 stills. And also the Jennifer music video directed by Dario Argento. So it's a music video for a piece of music done by Claudio Simonetti for the film. It was shot when they were making the film, but it only has a few, I think, clips from the movie. A lot of it is newly shot footage with Jennifer Connelly and strange, dreamlike Argento oddity, which is really cool to see. Also pretty low quality, but I think it's always looked like that as long as I've seen it. That goes back to, I believe, the old Roan Group Laserdisc had that Jennifer music video on there, and it didn't look any better then. I think it was just nobody ever cared to preserve a really great copy of it. Disc 2, we have 2 versions of the film. This is all still 4K. It's all basically that 4K transfer edited to conform to these various other versions. So it's going to look with the Creepers version, the American version that I'll get to, that basically you're watching the 4K transfer and then it cuts to the American titles, which are of a lower quality. They're probably of whenever they did probably the Blu-ray transfer, I would guess. So they don't look quite as good, but it's text over trees, so it's not like it's a shocking quality difference. The international version is 110 minutes. The US Creepers version is 86 minutes. So on the international version, you get English 5.1 surround sound, you get English 2.0 stereo, you get an alternate 2.0 mix that has unique Foley effects and music, and it's a different audio experience, which is kind of cool that they are that complete, because I know a lot of people, however you first saw it is kind of what's going to be close to your heart in one way or another. And it's always nice to be able to go back and revisit it in that form, even if it's not the best form. I mean, Creepers is far from the best way to see this movie, but a lot of people in this country first saw it that way, or always heard about that version and would love to be able to experience that. And it's cool that they give you that option on here. For me, I probably always tend to watch the longest one, but once in a while, if I revisit this, I might be like, hey, let's throw in Creepers. I've got an hour and a half. Let's throw in Creepers. So there's a commentary by, sorry why I squint, Derek Boletio and David Delval, which is very interesting. Boletio, I'm probably mispronouncing his name, Derek. I'm very sorry. My eyes aren't that great. The notes are way over there. He had written a book about Argento, and David Delval is just like a horror historian. So they talk, again, pretty honestly about this film and Argento as a whole and his relationship and working with Daria Nicolodi, who is his mate for the longest time, who's in this film, apparently freshly not his mate when they made this film, and working with his daughters and all that sort of thing. You have the Creepers version, as I said. It's new master conformed. This is just my notes, so that's what I already said. There's an English mono for Creepers and English 2.0 with stereo music, which is cool. And then extras, I really, 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 really liked this extra. I wish they do this more often. This is a Tim Lucas Video Watchdog kind of thing. Video Watchdog was this great magazine that Tim and Donna Lucas did for many years. If you don't know, if you can find copies online, find them. It was the first place that really talked about this kind of thing. It was the first publication that I ever found that would talk about different edits of films and different versions and letterboxing and alternate whatever. And it really dug deep into fantastic cinema, as we call it. And that was one of the few magazines I ever read cover to cover. I would read in-depth articles about movies I didn't even care about because it was just so well done. This is called The Three Sarcophagi, and this is a producer from Arrow Video. This is Michael McKenzie, and he goes in depth into, this is like a half hour. He goes in depth talking about the differences between the three versions of Phenomena that are on this set, down to having a side-by-side to the same scene playing out in two windows, where one is the international version and one is Creepers, or one is the Italian, and the screen will cut to black where there's missing material, and you can see, and he goes into detail. You know, the international version versus the Italian was just tightening it up, basically. It was just taking shots that went on a little bit long or redundant parts of conversations to just tighten the film up a little bit. And then he talks about when New Line Cinema, the then just becoming what we knew it to become in the 80s, New Line Cinema, went to release this. They had Jack Shoulder, who was the guy who had, I guess, just directed Nightmare on Elm Street 2 and would go on to direct The Hidden and other things. He was the guy at New Line Cinema who was in charge of turning basically a 110-minute movie into an 86-minute movie, and it was just wholesale slash and burn of content to just make this get to the point, don't cut the gore, cut the jibber jabber, sell it on its metal soundtrack kind of thing, and all of it. To me, that's fascinating, and that was the extra I was most looking forward to, and that I liked the most. Maybe even more than the making of. And the making of was really good. I'm fascinated by how films are retooled for different markets, retooled and retitled and remarketed and all that kind of stuff. And this gets into that. You also have the U.S. trailer, which again pushes really the edginess of this film, and less the poetic nature and more the gore and terror. And U.S. radio spots, one of which is like, not the actual words, but it's something to the effect of "when mayhem and metal meet." Like they're selling the fact that it's got Iron Maiden songs in the film, and that's kind of interesting. So this is a really good set. Again, it's not my favorite Argento. It's part of his like golden period to me. It's sort of toward the tail end. For me, he kind of dropped off, or he did drop off after Opera, which was the film that came next about 2 years later after this. After that, most of it was not that great, some of it better than others. So it's great to have this in the definitive presentation. This is a really nice set. If you didn't get, I believe Synapse put this out once before in like a tin that had the best transfer and maybe a more complete version of the soundtrack. And I know they put out another set that had lobby cards in it. But this is the release that's coming out now. This is the release that's going to be the most affordable of any of those. It's no tuck-ins or bells and whistles. It's just the best ever looking version of this and sounding version of this movie, and voluminous extras. So needless to say, I very, very highly recommend this new Synapse release of the 4K edition of Dario Argento's Phenomena. Dee, 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 dee.